name is Drew Clark. I'm Executive Director and very happy to be here at this follow-up webinar that we're hosting here. Just two preliminary items before we get to the program. First of all, we did not record the prior webinar that took place previously. However, we are recording this one so that we will have a copy of the audio and the materials that are presented. And secondly, as noted on our website announcing this, we do plan to make available the names, companies, phone numbers, and emails of those participants in this webinar unless you choose to opt out within the next 24 hours. If you would like to if you would like to opt out, please email Clayton Black, that's clayton.black@Broadband, Illinois, and we will not share your contact information. But otherwise, we just want to give notice of that process. Once again, this is our webinar on the Gigabit Community Challenge. We're very happy. We have a representative from the state of Illinois here with us. But first off, I'd like to turn to Brad Housewright, who will actually, before I turn to Brad Housewright, I'd like to recognize the Illinois Science and Technology Coalition, which will be making a few words of introduction.
Hey, Alia?
Yes, am I on the line?
Yes, you are.
Great. Hi. This is Alia Adamani. I'm the Director for Innovation and Special Initiatives at the Illinois Science and Technology Coalition. We are an advocacy organization based here in Chicago. We work very closely with the Governor's Office and the State Department of Commerce on a number of technology and science-focused economic development initiatives. So we are very happy to be a partner here on the Gigabit Communities Challenge. Our strength is really in helping to kind of connect the dots between policymakers, the university research community, and industry. So to the extent that we can be useful in doing that in the various communities that are applying for grants here, I think that that's an area where we could really be helpful and that we're interested in getting engaged. So I'm happy to answer any questions further. I'm looking to learn a bit more about how, what our role might be as the project develops, but happy to be here and participating.
Great, thank you very much. We really appreciate the outpouring of interest that, like us, are very excited about this Gigabit Communities webinar. So with that, let me turn now to Brad Housewright, E-Team Director at Partnership for Connected Illinois.
Hello, folks. Thank you very much for joining us. I just briefly wanted to go back over the high points of the Gigabit Challenge in terms of submitting an application. To submit a viable application for the Gigabit Challenge, you have, for an ultra-high-speed broadband service of at least 1,000 end users in an Illinois community. I did want to reiterate that, and I know that Mr. Clark's going to go back through some of the questions, but did want to reiterate that the questions have been posted to the website. So if you're concerned or had questions from before, please review those to get answers to the questions that you did submit. For those eligible applicants, we have basically, there are several. You can be a provider, you can be a business, a school, a hospital, a community leader. Could be multiple groups that can file in as applications. We encourage the more collaboration, the better for the opportunity that exists for at least the community level. Eligible cost. In the eligible cost part, the state funding may only be used for bondable capital expenditures for the ultra-high-speed broadband networks. Please refer to questions that were submitted about that as well. Timeline, if these funds are used, then the state would like to see the end of 2013, the construction be done and the networks be live and operational at that time. Evaluation criteria, again, let me also say that this information can be found on broadbandillinois.org as far as information and guidelines. Also, if you go to the website gigabit.illinois.gov, you can also review the information as well. But certainly in this climate, job creation is really a #1 factor. Certainly network quality, scalability, service tiers, project cost, proximity to college university, sustainable business model, other funding obligations or commitments that you might have, impact to the area, and then the expertise and experience of the team that will be doing the construction, the implementation, and the work. For additional guidelines, please review from the website to get the information and the questions again. Please keep submitting the questions that you have on the website, the gigabit.illinois.gov website, so we can continue to ensure that those questions are established there and answered there for your review. There's also an application that's online on that website. If you have any questions or issues or problems being able to download that application, please reach out to Partnership for Connected Illinois, Broadband Illinois, or certainly the Gigabit website as well.
Thank you so much, Brad. As Brad mentioned, there's a lot of excitement about this application process, and on the website, the gigabit.illinois.gov website, you can see the application information, and you can also see the answers to frequently asked questions. I thought it would be useful to walk through the frequently asked questions and to review them. Obviously, these are now available on gigabit.illinois.gov, but as there's a lot of interest in this, a lot of people participating in this webinar, we thought it would be useful to set the stage while we also invite your questions that may elaborate or pose further questions on the challenge. The first question offered that's been answered is, have any speed thresholds been defined for ultra-high broadband? Thank you very much. So this is the website, and you can see the answers to the questions. Which state agency will review applications and make the awards? The Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Can a coalition of city, county, school district, hospital, and local businesses make a joint application? Yes, in fact, such coalitions are encouraged as they demonstrate broad community support. How important is the public-private partnership? While it's not a requirement, it is encouraged. Do we need to provide a network map with the application? Applicants are encouraged to provide as much detail as possible. For example, network topology with diagrams or tables, including end-user nodes, network access points, and other distinct network elements. How is end-user defined? End-user refers to households or institutions' actual sites. When the application says 1,000 end users, does it mean 1,000 total for the entire state or 1,000 per community? It means 1,000 for the community. Does the 1,000 end user requirement mean users past or users taking services? It refers to users past. Would the expectation be that 1 gigabit speeds would be available to all 1,000 customers 24/7? Yes. Is the term gigabit meant to be per user? Yes. If a home has 5 people living in it, but only 1 internet-capable device, does this count as 5 or 1? This would count as 1. Is the 1,000 end user by community or project if the application covers more than 1 community? A single proposal can span multiple cities, villages, or towns. Would it be favorable to work with the BTOP grants in the state of Illinois? Yes, we support leveraging other broadband efforts, those that have been funded privately or publicly. Is there a recommended delivery medium, i.e. fiber, copper, wireless? No. Is there an open access requirement or other obligations in that vein? No. Have any speed thresholds been defined for ultra-high broadband? No. Is this directed at last-mile end-user applications to deliver gigabit products, services, or middle-mile services? Not necessarily. In a given community or population, who decides which end users get service? Each application should determine which end users will become part of the network. Will there be what will be the test with the final turn-up at the end of 2013 to show that at least 1,000 users have access to 1 gigabit? Yes, DCO will verify with any award winner that projects deliver on the services promised in proposals. How will job creation impact be evaluated? For the purpose of this challenge, job creation will be measured solely by the activity resulting directly from construction and development of the project. We are not asking for what jobs or how many will be created as a result of having access to ultra-high-speed broadband. Is there an expectation of a minimum number of jobs that should be created per 1,000 end users? No, but applicants should, at a minimum, project the number of jobs created from the construction of this network. Will projects that create broadband availability in areas currently not served be weighed more heavily than those that expand or modify services in areas currently with access? Not necessarily. The focus is on project viability, the most feasible of which may require expanding or modifying services in areas currently with access. I may have multiple government partners, but no private partners. Is that likely to be considered for funding? If the applicant can show the project is viable and that government entities have the capability to build it without assistance from the private sector, then it will receive the same level of consideration as other projects. Will the grant funds be distributed to just one project or spread over multiple projects? We will choose multiple awardees. If I win, is the network mine, or am I just a steward of the operation? It is yours. Do I have to declare intended services and prices on the application? No. What is the contract term? Up to 2 years. How are funds dispersed, and what happens if we can't complete the project as planned? Grants are authorized in full, but specific grant agreement terms and conditions will be negotiated with each individual grantee and may vary from one project to the next. Part or all of the grant may be subject to repayment to DCO within the time frame outlined in the grant agreement if the grantee, A, fails to complete the project as committed, B, fails to secure the level of leverage necessary to reflect equal matching funds between project costs and grant funds through this program, or C, fails to meet other milestones or goals resulting in an event of default under the grant agreement. Will you consider proposals that include new designs? Yes. So those are the questions that have been asked, including many that were asked in this in the previous webinar, and the answers that have been provided by the state. We now like to open it up to participants in the webinar. We have many of you on this webinar, and we're happy for the interest. So let's go ahead and open the questions and see if we can get questions and how we can discuss or respond or relay information about it.
All right, this is Clayton Black with the Partnership for Connected Illinois. Just going to read the first question here from Mike Hammett. Mike says, I don't see there being any parts of the state without a private partner. That's just someone from the public sector not reaching out to local private companies. It's more of a comment, I guess, than a question, but welcome to address if necessary.
Go ahead and read the question.
Sure. I don't see there being any parts of the state without a private partner. That's just someone from the public sector not reaching out to local private companies. More of a comment and a question, but you're welcome to address, Drew.
Okay. Don't have any reactions.
Okay, sure. The next question is from Bruce Cooper. He says, it would appear that this program is not going to be available for rural usage by the requirements of population by community and 1 gig service in rural population areas. Do I read this correctly?
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Sure thing. It says, it would appear that this program is not going to be available for rural usage by the requirements of population by community and 1 gig service in rural population areas. Do I read this question? Do I read this correctly?
Let me just get a little help in taking this off mute here so I can speak more clearly. That's the sound, but let's get the mute here. Great, thank you. The reading of the application seems to suggest that applications are welcome from any community that can provide 1,000 end users, and there are many towns within Illinois with 1,000 end users. So, and moreover, the application does state that a single proposal can span multiple cities, villages, or towns. So I don't think that's necessarily a implication of the information that's been made available. What role, if any, will PCI play in the grant process? Partnership for Connected Illinois will not be involved in the decision-making of those awardees. We are rather a facilitator to assist in the process of applicants that may like to take advantage of the resources that Broadband Illinois, as the designated entity for Illinois, with mapping resources, with responsibilities for collaborating, connecting, and convening, and with responsibilities for engagement with broadband usage and adoption. So we're not going to be in a decision-making role. Rather, we're facilitators along with many other groups in this process that want to play a role. All right, we have another question. Your answers, the answers provided seem to contradict in regard to speed. One response is there is an expectation of 1 gig speeds available to 1,000 users 24/7. Another answer says a speed threshold has not been defined. Can you better define expected delivery speeds? Well, the answers that we've discussed here said that is the term gigabit meant to be per user? Yes. Have any speed thresholds been defined for ultra-high broadband? No. So the expectation is that whatever speed is awarded, it is going to be available 24/7. I mean, it is the Illinois Gigabit Communities Challenge. So the name does seem to suggest gigabit, but I think that there may be a little bit of flexibility in that the speed thresholds have not been defined for ultra-high speed broadband. Great. If there are further questions, please feel free to raise your hand or offer them in this discussion here. I know we've had many questions in the previous webinar, and those have, of course, generated some answers here. We have two people with hands raised who'd like to speak. We're going to go ahead and turn the floor over to them. The first person is Susan Nash. Go ahead, Susan. You can speak and ask your question, if any. Susan, you should be free to speak. Please go ahead and ask a question that you have. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on. The next person with their hand raised is Chad Thompson. Chad, are you there?
Yes. Hello?
Okay, go ahead and ask your question or make your comment, Chad.
We're a small ISP in Southern Illinois, currently doing wireless service. And a couple of points and questions I have about, gigabit services. For one thing, gigabit service isn't even available to the majority of the ISPs in Illinois. In most of the areas, we can't even get gigabit service for our own companies. So I mean, it kind of just seems odd that we're trying to offer gigabit service to an individual home 24/7 when ISPs for providing service currently can't even get gigabit service. And cost-wise, I mean, there's no way that you can supply gigabit service to a household 24/7 and make it cost justifiable for the family. I just don't understand it.
Thank you for that question and comment. I'm going to actually turn to Brad Houseright just to talk in general from his perspective about this issue.
Again, it was defined as gigabit, but the the actual ultra high-speed broadband from a speed perspective has not been. I think the thing that we want to keep in mind, of course, as we keep looking for answers to the question, is that the opportunity is available from an infrastructure point of view to be able to deliver a gigabit capacity to the end user. I understand what you're talking about as far as bandwidth and being available, especially in Southern Illinois, because that's where I'm from. I know that we do have hurdles and we do struggle with that infrastructure, but there are definitely some alternatives and some abilities for us to reach out to some long-haul and middle-mile providers that have available capacity in that. And also from the point of view when you talk about, a business model, that also has to be built in as a part of that business case in terms of being able to be affordable and make sense. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us so we can try to help you to be able to reach out to several of those middle-mile providers so we can have several opportunities for you to make a selection from different vendors. Thanks.
Thank you, Brad. We do have some more questions here. What about a community that has already raised funds and completed some build-out but wants to use this grant funding to increase our coverage area? What kind of matching funds would be required under these circumstances? That's from Rebecca Casper. Rebecca, I believe that the questions did address can the applications work with other, for example, can it expand and leverage and improve the services offered? So I think that the answers clearly do offer that opportunity to expand and to build on top of existing projects. So to the point about what kind of matching funds would be required, as all the applications state, leverage is something that is considered for funding, but there's no specific requirements spelled out as a minimum of leveraged funding for that circumstance versus the other circumstances. We have some more questions now. Chad Thompson has asked an additional question. Is the state doing anything to work on middle mile issues? Gigabit service isn't even available to ISPs in the majority of the state at this point in time. And Chad, that's the same question you asked when you spoke, that we've done our best to comment on. Bruce Cooper asked the question. The previous questioner the previous questions listed 1,000 per community, not per grant application, I believe. Most underserved in rural areas encompass fewer than 1,000 per community. Well, the questions do state that a single proposal can span multiple cities, villages, or towns. So the requirement is 1,000 per grant application as opposed to 1,000 per community. Although there are answers that say, when you say 1,000 end users, do you mean 1,000 for the entire state or for the community? The response there is 1,000 per community, but the other responses do make clear that multiple communities can be joined together to bring that 1,000 user threshold. We have a question from Ed Van Hoos. Does the 2-year contract term indicate that the build-out must be completed within a 2-year period. Well, the answers do seem to indicate an expectation of completion within that period of time, but I would hesitate to give a definitive answer on that one. So we'll certainly make sure that gets submitted and hopefully an answer to that one in the near future. William Whittaker asked how you raise your hand. Clayton, would you like to indicate that?
Sure. He's got his hand raised, so would we like to?
Oh, sure. Go ahead. William, I'm sorry, but we're not able to unmute you because you dialed in on the phone, but we will continue to work on that. If you like, feel free to go ahead and type your question, and we do see your questions here. Jonathan Cape asks, with the short timeline as to be completed by the end of 2013, can extension be if the project will not be completed on time? I don't think we have an answer to that question, Jonathan. So we'll have to get that submitted and see what answer we can get on that. All right, we've resolved our technical difficulties, and we're going to invite William to speak. William, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some clarification on how end user is defined. I understand household, but as far as institutions, let's say I have a computer technology center with a computer technology training center with 20 computers in it. Do you count the actual computers as end users, or the site itself?
I'm not sure of a definitive answer on that one, but we can certainly get an answer on that. I think the intent seems to be to get end users, and so while a previous question had said that 5 people in a house only counts for 1, a situation with the Computer Technology Center may well be different. So we'll make sure that question gets submitted for a definitive response. Was there another question on that point, William? I'm sorry, William, you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Yeah, and I was just, I mean, in terms of innovation and job creation and training and things like that, I thought that would be something that we need to address to make sure we put the best possible application in, understanding what or where that 1,000 end user number counts toward.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think it's a very legitimate question to be fully and clearly answered. All right, let's go to the next question. This is a chat question from Kevin Kline. I hope I pronounced that correct, Kevin. Just to clarify, if 1 gigabit plus speeds were taken to 10 dorm buildings with 100 students each, this would be deemed as 10 end users or would be deemed 1,000 end users. And that is precisely the elaboration on the question that has been asked, and I think there needs to be some clarification, so we'll make sure that gets submitted to the state for an answer. Okay, we have a question from Chad Thompson. I apologize, but wasn't able to attend the other webinar, but from listening to this webinar, I really don't understand what bandwidth must be delivered to the end users. I thought I heard 1 gigabit per end user 24/7, but when my question was answered, it was indicated this was not the case. What is the actual requirement? Well, Chad, the answers that we have received that are posted indicate, have any speed thresholds been defined for ultra-high-speed broadband? The answer is no. But the next question, is the term gigabit meant to be per user? The answer is yes. So I think the goal is to get a gigabit community challenge. My own point of view is I would certainly hope that that applicants would put forward their best proposals for the highest speeds available. So the actual responses indicate that there's no speed threshold set, even though the goal is a gigabit. Let's move on to the next question. Bruce Cooper says, thank you. That clears that up. However, the cost to the end user for 1 gigabit service would be outside the bounds of most end users. I realize that users aren't required to take the service, but the idea of gigabit service is outside the feasibility of most users at this time. We would hope that in rural areas the significance in raising speeds to higher speeds than 50 megabits would sway any DCO review. Well, that's an important comment. We'll make sure that gets passed on as well, Bruce. We do have another hand raised, Susan Nash. Let's go ahead and open the phone line. Susan, are you there? Susan, are you there? Okay. Great. Well, we don't have any more questions at this point in time. We'll wait a few minutes to see if there are further questions on the Illinois Gigabit Communities Challenge. I think it's great to see the level of interest that has been raised in this, both by participation in the webinars and by the questions that have been posed, as well as the answers received. Again, we've been reporting this, and we'll continue to make the answers, provide the answers to the state, and see if there are responses to this. Let me reiterate one point that was asked earlier on. What is the role of the Partnership for Connected Illinois in this process? As many of you know, we are a nonprofit public-private organization. We're 501c3 based here in Springfield, and our role is that of a facilitator and a collaborator. We work with all parties, private providers, public sector, local communities. Our E-teams, which are active in the regions of this state, are designed to help facilitate the kinds of dialogue that can link providers and end users together. And so the question was asked as the role that the Partnership for Connected Illinois would play in this process, and my answer was that we will not be deciding applications. Rather, our role is to facilitate and work with. We're happy to partner with any entity, private or public, that is participating in this challenge. And as you know, we do have and make available on our Broadband Illinois website much information about broadband service availability throughout the state. So with that, I will give one last opportunity for hands to be raised or questions to be submitted. We appreciate your interest. We did get a question here. So Chad Thompson asked, you had mentioned to contact you regarding middle mile access. Who do we need to contact for that information? I guess I need a little more clarification, Chad. What are you referring to by contact, and that's with regard to middle mile access? Brad, go ahead.
Hey, Chad, this is Brad again with PCI. Just brad.housewright@broadbandillinois.org. I will help to facilitate as many middle mile providers as we can in Southern Illinois to get you the backhaul you need.
And that was in response to the question
Yes,
that's been raised earlier. Chad, Brad can spell his name again, but I invite you to go to the Broadband Illinois website under the About tab. You can see all of our staff, email addresses, phone numbers, pictures, so that you can, in any future instance, find the right person to connect to. But let's go ahead and let Brad spell his name one more time.
It's just brad.housewright at broadbandillinois.org.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again. We have been on this webinar for 35 minutes, and we appreciate the questions you provided. And again, if there are any follow-up questions, you can certainly reach out to us. The email address to use is eteams, E-T-E-A-M-S, at broadbandillinois.org. And again, this information is available on the broadbandillinois.org website. Thank you again for your time and for your interest.